Welcome to Carolina Sculpture Studio. My name is Clint Button, and I'm a granite sculptor. Welcome to video number 38 of the virtual stone carving apprenticeship. All right, told you I was going to do this, and the order stuff shows up. We're trying to work through things in the process, but we've also got a regular operating studio to deal with. So, got another small project that came in while we're waiting on the angel stone and doing the clay. This cross was cut out of Carrara marble, probably locally here in Spartanburg, South Carolina, in the late 1800s. Dates go up to about 1895, 96. There's 3 burials on this one stone of lost children that were very young, so it's likely that it was produced later. It may have been produced after the turn of the century, and the parents could afford to put a stone up to commemorate 3 of their lost children. This is done in Carrara marble. It's obviously been repaired multiple times, and the repairs, they weren't done by me, done by whoever. And they tried well, but it didn't even survive the ride home because it just popped right off. Now what we're going to do, this is a finishing job. I've got a new piece of Colorado Yule right here to match it, and I'll lay this out and we'll cut it here out of this piece of Colorado. But it's got some ornate detail here on the end. See if we can get up and show where it's faceted. We're going to move the camera around for the light to be a little bit better. But and I'll explain how we're going to do this. So check it out. This is going to be another finishing job. Not necessarily a sculpture job, but this is something that's hard to find people that understand what to do and how to do it anymore. So I'm going to present this. This is a 90-degree model for a dormered capital with a vaulted apex top that we did out of Colorado Yule a little while back. 2 or 3 good videos about it on the channel. And so the way to figure this project out and decide what it needs to be is we're going to do it the same way that I did this. This is a 90-degree model for a full round piece. I did 1/4 of it. Okay, we're going to dissect this because there's a lot going on here with all these different facets, but in reality, all it really is we've got a 90, if we split this into 90 degrees, halfway through here and halfway through here, and we replicate that 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 4 more times and 4 more times and almost 4 more times here. That's the job. We just keep doing the same thing over and over again. And we have to have our agreement in the center plane, and that'll be on the flat plane of the stone. So we'll put this together in a way where we've got all these flat references to make it work really well. It makes it very easy to measure. Now we could get across, it was all sawed out, and tick, 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 very carefully go along here. I opted to go ahead and leave it heavy, so we had all that extra support because you can see where this broke. It broke here, it broke here, and I want all the support I can have on these arms. This arm has got a big fault running through it where it's cracked. I want to leave as much strength here as possible while I'm working it. So I could work this into the center, and into the center, and into the center, and then work this up, and then resolve these flats at the very end, get everything to agree, pull it down nice and tight, and it'll be great. So I'm going to go over in the wood shop and put together just a basic form similar to this in this accurate dimension. I'll take a bunch of measurements, try to map it out off the best one, because I've got a dozen different corners I can reference. And they've got a square cross was cut to a bevel with these flourishes left on the end, these raised pieces. And then the bevel was continued, but that would have left an octagon on the end, which isn't necessarily relevant, in most terms of a cross. So they put a little diagonal right here and cut a check and made these ends into a cross. Some of them are busted, but I can take the best elements of each one, measure them, figure it out, map it out, and then make one pattern that's just a little one-to-one model. And that'll help me lay everything out so I know how it's going to be. That's how I did it here. And we'll draw a million lines on the stone and we'll just start carving. So check it out. It's another shop-made tool, just a little aluminum template. The cross measures 3 by 3. And the face is 1 inch. This is 1.5 inches. Stone's 4 inches because we wanted it, and so I'll just do a panel 1 inch deep before I start the face of the cross, and if I can see if one side's better than the other, and I'll leave it original, and I'll go down about 1 inch and just do a quick panel, because if I carve it at the 4 inch dimension, it's going to make it look really fat and stubby, and that's one of the problems when you do reproduction work, is if you vary on your dimensions a lot, you can make it look really awful. And you say, well, that's what they sent me. Nah, you're in charge. If you can cut it, you can fix it. So go ahead and make it right. And we'll do both faces here. If you've ever done any chip carving, you'll find out that a lot of this faceting work is very similar, because everything you do, it produces the other details. And so it makes it pretty, it actually speeds up the work quite a bit. And I don't have to draw this. I'm probably smart enough to do it without it. But this will provide me a record then I'll do a corner because I only have to do 90 degrees. And this 3 inch dimension that I'm doing is it should measure for this here. So I'm going to lay these out to try to figure out what all these dimensions are. We'll just keep drawing. And through the magic of video, a little bit of time in the wood shop, model shop, and see if we can get this where the light shows it okay. It's 1 inch, 1 inch. Put a bevel in here just to fill it. And then this is 1 inch by 1 inch by 1 inch. And then I can finish all this detail in. I'll have my cross. It was faster to just use a piece of 3/4 inch plywood and put it on the belt sander and just bevel it so that it's 1/2 inch and 1/2 inch, and that represents a 90-degree model. And so by putting it on a piece of 2x like this, I can stand it up, I can lay it down, I can orient the way I want to. Now I'm just going to fill it with clay real quick, get this built up, and it'll be a quick little model. I'm sure there's more esoteric ways to do this. I did a little bit of drawing, figure out some of my dimensions and what I needed to lay out, just enough for me. You're going to have to do what works for you. There's no guaranteed book on how all this is done. A lot of this stuff isn't ever written down because that's how people keep it a secret, and that's how they don't learn how to, nobody else learns how to do it. So these little 90-degree models for capital, that's how you do if you're doing a fancy capital with, you know, volutes or Corinthian or whatever. That's, you do a 90-degree capital model. You don't do the whole thing. There's no need to. You do 90 degrees and then duplicate it 4 times. So put some clay on this real quick, and we'll finish this detail up and match it. We'll be able to start laying out the cross. Boy, the light's a bugger in here. All right, a few minutes, a little bit of clay, and that's skinned up. Now, this isn't terribly complicated, but it is. And it's complicated because these facets need to be cut. Can you see those are a nice X? They're really accurate, they're really straight, and you've got all these lines that line up. And so if you make them crooked or you get them at a different depth, they're going to look horrible. So we're going to work on this cross now. I've got to start laying it out. Like I said, there's probably, I'm sure smart people know how to just draw this, and they can understand that this is at a 45 to this, and you draw 3 or 4 elevations. And you know, I sketched out a little bit to kind of figure where things were from this really wet cross. Then laid up some wood, screwed it together so I could move it and adjust it if I needed to. And it took just a small amount of clay. Like, I don't even think I used maybe a golf ball amount of clay on that. There's not a lot of clay skinned on that because it's pretty close. So now we'll just lay it out, and this 90-degree model literally is 1, 2, 3, 4 on each one, and then all the way around. And then on the bottom we'll probably have this, just this protrusion to make it look more stable, because it'll look empty if there's nothing at the bottom at the joint on the cross, and it's completely destroyed and gone on the original. There's nothing left except concrete and putty. So I'm assuming it probably had 4 protrusions like this to make it look a little more stable. They weren't faceted underneath, but on top they were. So now it's time to get the marble out, and would have to start laying it out. But first I'm going to do a panel, a 3-inch by 3-inch, to get it down to depth, to make this cross the same dimension as the other one, because that's 4 inches, and 4 inches ain't going to do it. If you had a saw set up like a radial arm saw with a diamond blade on it, you could go slow and just waste it down and have a really nice cross laid out, you know, like that. I'm not going to make the mess in my other shop. I'm just going to do it right here by hand, the old-fashioned way. So, but a little 90-degree model like that, make you look like you know what you're doing. Give it a shot. Let's start doing the marble. I think the next step is going to start laying out the marble for the cross, whether the panel or not. But I think the next step needs to be, I've got to clear this and figure out just exactly what we need to produce. You can see where this is weathered. It's got a pretty distinct top that's right at 4 inches. And so there's a chance that that original cross may have been 4 inches at the bottom and had a larger base on it, which is pretty normal. I've cut crosses like that before, versus being a straight piece. And it makes it look more massive and more pendant, like it should be standing there. So let's cut this off. I'm going to just try to work this off, probably with the diamond saw, because I want to relieve it a little bit and take it off. I'm just going to get this cleaned off down to the bottom, and we'll see what it looks like. So we'll be back in a minute. Blade for granite on something like this, because you never know what's going to be in there. Might be something pretty detrimental to a diamond saw. Hopefully stuff will just pop off when you do it. That's what it looks like. Still got a little bit of mortar or concrete or whatever they use. There's an old iron pin in there, and that pin probably is secured. They may have sealed it with lead or driven a wedge in there. So if it loosens up, we'll take it out. If not, we'll just attach to it and help stabilize it. But the way this looks, very much of a joint. I'm going to have to square that up, flatten it a little bit so it'll actually receive across. We'll figure out our dimensions. You can see around there is 3.5, and that's 3.5 too. So if I just cut this right down to 3 inches, it's probably going to be small. So we'll see. Clean this up some more and make some decisions. See, that's flattened out a lot better now. How do you look? 3 inches, probably 3.5. That pin was centered. Looks more like it's on 3.5. So looks like I'm going to be cutting 1/2 inch off each face of that cross, which doesn't surprise me, but it's 5 inches. 5 inches. That's pretty close to centered right there at that 5 inches. This is pretty close to level. I'm going to check it against the joint. Looks like that base is going to be 3.5 on that cross. I'll brick that, smooth it all up. This will give me a better seat, and whether we put a bunch of epoxy or silicone in there to fill it with or not, but we'll figure it out. But that's pretty close. If that pin's centered, and that's pretty close to centered, that's centered in. So that looks like it, because if that's centered on 3 inches, that's going to be really small. So we'll go 3.5, make it a little bit bigger. A little more work, but nicer job. So the next question, how do you square this, make this parallel to the joint? Okay, how do you think we're going to do it? We're going to do it just like we did with the plumb blocks and doing a panel. We're going to put a straight edge across the top. We've got these boards acting as a straight edge across the bottom. Then we're going to measure it. Now this is a wonky ruler. See, that says just over 12 inches, 12 and 5/16. And that says 12 and almost 1/2 inch. So this side's a lot higher. So we'll check this one and see where that looks. That's really close to this one. Looks like it's going to be kind of short on there. We can turn it sideways, and we'll check this one as well. And that's about the same as the front, but see if this one's high or not. And the back one is just about right on the money. So we're going to wiggle these boards around a little bit, do some measuring. Maybe this corner is just high. That's why I showed you plumb blocks, y'all. Stuff like that will teach you how to do this, because otherwise you'd whittle on this and it'd be crooked, and you whittle on it, it'd be crooked, and before you know it, you're down to here. Okay, that's how a lot of artists do it when they're trying to square things up, because they don't know how to do it. It isn't complicated, you just need to do it the right way. So hopefully we'll just be high on one corner. We can draw that one corner down and everything will match up. Keep working. The important thing to understand when you're doing this, if you're on a piece of stone that isn't level across, if this side's down and this side's up, I'm exaggerating it. So when I cut this down, it's going to bring that side up. So you only have to remove basically half of the stone in order to bring them up to justify them. You don't remove, if you're off by 1/4 inch, if you remove 1/8 on this side, it should sink at 1/8, and it'll probably bring it up about that much. So you got to go careful. Don't go crazy on this. And then do some checking and make sure to keep measuring. Because see, that brought it up just a little. And it brought this down a little. So we're still just a little out of straight with it. But we're really, really close. We've only got, you know, about 1/8 of an inch to go. Yeah, this is just a full stroke machine. Yeah, it's just a straight carbide chisel on granite. For this little bit of work, it's not going to hurt anything. I'm going to start carving. I'm going to get out my short stroke machines because they'll go a lot better. So, but just keep going slow and keep checking it. Just because we don't want to do all this work and then have this cross sit like this. That wouldn't be cool, man. Look like we're idiots. We don't want to be like that. We want a good work. Keep working. That measures just about exactly the same up to 12 inches and a 16th and 5/16. And so I'm going to take a stone and rub it just to dress off these tool marks. You'll find a lot of times that your high points or your obstruction is in the center, not on the corners when you're doing something like this. And so you've almost got to think about it reverse of doing a panel, where you do a panel and you put a little bit of crown. You almost want to have the corners high, a little bit of dish on this. Now be careful bricking this. If you drag your hand over that 130-year-old piece of iron pin, you'll wish you hadn't. Now, depending on where this was going, if we wanted to blend this, we could tape this off and just hit it real lightly with some sandblast just to texture this up, and it'd camouflage it pretty well. If we want to camouflage it a lot, we get a little bit of red dirt and dirty it up a little bit too. But for this project, that's not as critical. We're not. That's pretty good. That'll give us a nice surface to attach to connect to. And we'll just double check our, see our level straight edge sits right on there really nice. So without any rocks or cross, should stand on there really well. And that pin seems pretty secure. So we'll just plan on using it and not trying to wreck the stone, because trying to take it out, we could easily destroy the stone. Here we go. Now we got a new place to set the cross. It's nice and flat and straight. Got that all taken care of. Onto the cross. Now I think we're going to probably have to go. Probably put a panel on each side of the cross, because this flat spot is right at 4 inches across. And I don't think I made it any bigger, so I'm probably going to take a 1/2 inch off each side of the cross and leave the bottom just a little bit bigger, just to make it. I'll probably call them up and find out, see what they think. And so it looks good, and it's as good a job as we can put out there, because it's for 3 little baby girls that died a long time ago. I love my baby girl. They deserve what they deserve. They didn't deserve to die a little, so do a good job for them. Well, I think we're going to wrap this video up. We're getting up in the 25-minute range, and we'll start the new video out, next video, laying out this cross. I talked with the retailer, going to leave the base 4 inches. So this will be 4 inches, so I've got to cut a 1/2 inch panel for the cross. I'm going to cut back a 1/2 inch on each face, front and back, in order to produce a 3-inch diameter, 3-inch cross section cross. Cutting panels, okay? This is why I've introduced panel work to you right at the very beginning. This is so important. It's something that you'll use over and over and over again. And when you can produce flat panels wherever you want, when you can produce panels that are parallel to other panels whenever you want. This goes right back to squaring that block exercise, just like the plumb blocks, because you're squaring one side to the other. Just like you're doing with this one. We're going to cut panels, we're going to cut a panel right here on each side. We've got a flat face, but they'll be parallel. And so in that process, it's going to give us something that's far beyond the normal and the plane that anybody can do. So practice your panel work. Square block. Learn how to use plumb blocks, even if you got to make a couple out of a piece of 2x4. You know, it isn't hard, man. You can do it. And this is the kind of simple work that sells. It makes money. It pays bills. While you're waiting on customers to decide on some big fancy ornate detail on that angel, or what kind of floral work they want, or if they want a Sacred Heart of Christ or a Sacred Heart of Mary or whatever. People, they take forever, a lot of patrons do, to decide, because there's a lot of emotions involved in some of these projects. So having work like this is really good skill. It's good practice. It's just plain good for you. And you can't fake a straight edge, square edge, straight line, flat plane. You got to do them right. So learn how to do them right. We'll get started on the next one, next video, doing this cross. My name's Clint Button here at Carolina Sculpture Studio with a virtual stone carving apprenticeship. Thanks for coming in.